Okay, so you should have green on the left, notes on the right. Most of you do. Okay, so I want to start off today's lesson by asking you guys, how many of you in elementary school, either were part of, in some way were part of it, meaning that you either did it or you were asked a question about it, and that is, how many of you guys, one of your teachers had you do a survey where you walked around with a piece of paper and pencil and go, what is your favorite color? Or what is your favorite video game? And then you'd ask people, right? And, okay, yeah, I see a lot of hands. I see that all the time. So, okay, that is a survey, right? Now, we're getting into statistics, and we've been talking about statistics. And we haven't talked much about this, but a lot of the statistics that we deal with, that's kind of in one way or another, maybe not an elementary school student asking another one, but very similar ways, that's where a lot of the stats, the numbers, the data comes from, or things like that. It could be based off of phone calls, it could be based off of something about with like a computer, but that's where numbers come in. Okay? Now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about this today. All right. What we're kind of talking about is surveys. Okay, if you think of it, and there's other things other than surveys, but that's kind of where this is coming from. It's surveys like that. Now, of course, they're not what is your favorite color kind of survey, but think of it in terms of that. It's very similar. Okay. Now, let's make it a more grown-up survey. All right, a more realistic survey other than what's your favorite color. And here it is. Okay, how many of you guys have been to Best Buy at some point in your life, right? Okay, I'm loving Best Buy. There's a lot of, I hate going there because it's pretty expensive. I try, but you want to do some window shopping and look and imagine what that system would be like in your house. You're like, woohoo, but it's sometimes a dream, right? So you go to Best Buy. Now, one thing they have in Best Buy is they have laptops, right? They have laptops and other computers as well, but so if I'm a business like Best Buy and the corporation is trying to do something very intelligent and make more money, because that's what business is about, right? They hear that most middle schools around the nation, our country, okay, or even in New York, they're going to laptop-based classrooms. And so they'll see a lot of school districts, for example, either buying laptops and selling them to students, or buying them and letting students use them. Okay? And then, of course, students go to Best Buy is one of the places and maybe buy a laptop as well, just directly from Best Buy. So the bottom line is they need to come up with a strategy. They need to come up with some kind of plan to maximize their business, to be smart about it and to be able to buy the correct kind of laptop that 7th graders are going to want. Okay? And so what they do is they want to know, what kind of laptop do 7th graders want around the nation? Okay? Now, you have to consider this, and this is where some of the thinking comes in this lesson. Okay? If you are Best Buy, do you think that someone I'm just going to make a generic statement, like someone in a school, let's take, for example, Fresno, we'll just say Fresno Unified, okay? And let's say it's a school that is in an area where the families don't have a lot of money, okay? And so let's take that in comparison to some place, and this is very an idea, not that this is true, but let's take a place like, we all know, like Beverly Hills, right? When we think of Beverly Hills, we think of like maybe some big mansions, palm trees, okay? And students there compared to the students, like I said, in that area in Fresno Unified. Do you think they're going to want the same type of laptops? No. You're not going to get everyone in every single area being interested in the same type of laptop, right? People in Beverly Hills, middle schoolers, their families probably can afford extremely expensive laptops that have all of the, what people call the bells and whistles, all these little extra things that probably aren't needed but are kind of nice to have, compared to someone that may just want the cheapest laptop they can have, where you just take it to class and do their work. Okay? So you have to consider who's buying. But not every area is going to be the same. Not every area is in California, not every area in the whole United States. Okay? Now, here's the thing. The bottom line is you need to pretty much try to ask because of that problem, you have to ask every middle schooler that you can get a hold of anywhere in the whole United States. Is that realistic? No, it's not going to happen. Okay, you can have 50 people making phone calls, but there are tons. And I mean, think about just in this school how many middle schoolers there are, right? Well, what about not just this school, not just this district, not even this city? I mean, you have the state, you have the whole country. Tons of middle schoolers, right? Millions. How can you get to all millions and get their opinion? You're not going to. So what you have to do is you have to have some strategy. Now let's pause from the Best Buy whole idea here, and let's take a little, and believe me, I'm going to bring them together, okay? Not many of my students have ever heard of this place because we don't have one here in Clovis, okay? So, but the place that I like to take my family, or they take me, I should say, we all go together on the weekend, anytime, any opportunity we have, we go to this little place called Uncle Harry's Bagel Shop. All right, and some of us have heard of it. If you've never been to Uncle Harry's, that's okay. Not many people have that live in Clovis. Like I said, most people around here, they go to like Panera. It's not exactly Panera, but it's similar in some ways to Panera. Okay, it's a little on a smaller scale though. But Uncle Harry's, I love their bagels. They have all these different type of bagels. I mean, whatever you think of, they've got. They're delicious. Okay, so I turn around. And my family and I, we go there, and I get my cup of coffee, my daughter gets her little juice, and we all like a different bagel, but that's okay because they have tons of different bagels. Now, if I was to, let's say, take a friend with me, okay, to share in this nice Saturday little mini breakfast, okay. Yes, some of you guys want to be my friend for me to take you. I understand, okay. So. So you guys didn't see, but there were some people that raised their hand trying to volunteer for me to take them Saturday. So I take a friend with me to Uncle Harry's to try these bagels. Now the first time you go there, right, just like the first time we went there, no idea what I like, right? If you look up on their counter, they have this container. It's like a plate with a top on it, but in there are a bunch of little tiny chunks of these bagels. What are those little chunks called, by the way? They're called samples. See, a sample is a small, accurate portion of what the real thing is. So, one of my favorite bagels is the pesto bagel, and when I first go there, if I want my friend to try the pesto bagel, it's probably not a good idea to spend the money on a whole bagel, them not like it, right? So what do? You get a sample. Now let's talk about the sample. If I go up and say, hey, I want you to try a pesto bagel, and I go up there and grab a garlic bagel and hand it to him and say, oh, I want you to try the pesto bagel. Here, try this. Okay, some of you guys are looking at me like I'm crazy, right? Is that a good sample of what I want them to try? No. The whole idea is, guys, is that whatever you want, whatever your goal is, you want, if you're not going to do the whole thing, you want an accurate little version of it to get results. And the results, of course, of the bagel is if you like the taste or not, right? You want to know, do you like it? Well, you're not going to try a garlic bagel if you want to buy the pesto bagel, right? So your sample has to be accurate. Now, all of this talking, what I'm doing is, here we go. In conclusion, when it comes to the intro part of this, that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about something called samples, and we need to know, are they good or bad samples? That's what this is. You say, well, so wait, Mr. Williams, we're talking about food? No, we're not talking about food, okay? We're talking about Best Buy. We're talking about if I want to find out what the whole United States middle schoolers want as a laptop, I need to get a smaller group, a sample, that fits the whole population, that matches the whole population, not something different. Okay, just like the bagel. I don't want to get a garlic bagel if I want to try out the pesto, right? Well, I don't, if I'm trying to match all the United States 7th graders or 8th graders, middle school students that like laptops, that need a laptop, I want to get an accurate measurement. I don't want to just go to the little school in Fresno. I don't want to just go to Beverly Hills. I want to go and get results from everybody in a way, a smaller version of everybody, a correct, accurate sample. Okay, so that's what we're going to be talking about today. All right, so here we go. Our very first word is an unbiased sample. Everyone?
Unbiased sample.
All right, so here's what an unbiased sample is. Kind of what I was just talking about. This is a sample representative of the entire population. An unbiased sample is a sample representative of the entire population. Basically, guys, this is a good sample. Okay, bless you. If you want to think of unbiased, well, how is unbiased? Well, you have to know what the word biased means. It kind of means not the truth, not accurate. Okay, you can almost think of it as like a lie, even though that's not quite a synonym. A bias is you can think of it as a lie. Well, unbiased means not a lie, right? Basically a good sample. All right, so now you don't have to write down this first part. This is just the intro. So let's say during all of these I kind of went with another example. Let's say we want to know what is the favorite 7th grade sport to play at Rayburn. Okay, at our school, what is of all 7th graders, what is our favorite sport to play? Well, unbiased sample would be basically to ask certain Rayburn 7th graders that fit the population. Okay? If I'm gonna give you like an elementary school kind of thing, here's a paper and a pencil, guys, go out and ask everyone. Well, you're not gonna have a chance to ask every single 7th grader on campus. Okay, just look at, in this class we have almost 40 7th graders. That's a lot. If you're to just ask 40, that's a lot, right? You have to ask at something that fits the whole population. Okay, and that's what that means. You have to, don't just ask the people in this class, because it might not fit the whole population. Okay. Okay, now, here's what I'm going to do. We're going to focus in on unbiased samples. I'm going to give you 2 types of unbiased samples. That's what these next 2 are. Okay, so here's the very first type of unbiased sample, meaning a good sample. Something called a simple random sample. Everyone?
Simple random sample.
All right, so if you want to be able to go and ask 7th graders what their favorite sport is, okay, this is one of those good samples. Okay, it says this is an unbiased sample where each item or person in the population is as likely to be chosen as any other. Okay, where each item or person in the population is likely to be chosen as any other. So let's say that the computer printed out everyone's name in the whole school, or all 7th graders, I should say, in the whole school. Someone cut a TA, cut them all out, they folded the little pieces of paper with every single student's name and put them in a hat. And then someone, without looking, reached in and grabbed 50 students. That would be an example of a simple random sample. You're not strategically choosing students. You're just kind of reaching in. The whole population's in there, but you're just randomly picking 50 out of there, and then you're going to go ask those people that question. Okay, that's an example of a simple random sample. Okay, that would give you a good sample, an accurate sample. Okay? And then we have an actual type of random sample. All right, this is called a systematic random sample. Everyone? And this is a sample where the items or people are selected according to the specific time or time interval. A sample where the items or people are selected according to a specific time or time interval. So here's, if the teachers are in charge of this, here's what we'd do. They would just say, someone reached in the hat and pulled out a 2 from 1 to 7. They pulled out a 2, and they said, oh, okay, second period. You know what? All math teachers after second period class, what's their favorite sport? All math 7 teachers, okay, asked your second period. So the chosen is out of second period, okay? So, and then they turn around and they ask. All right, that's an example. Maybe even a better example, if you guys were doing it, you can go out to the parking lot in the morning, and as students come either in from the bus or a parent dropping them off or a bicycle or a skateboard or whatever, you ask every 5th person. You don't go, oh, that's my friend, I'm going to ask them. Don't do that. You have to be true to it and say, okay, you let the 1, 2, 3, 4 people go by. The 5th one, you say, oh, excuse me, what's your favorite sport? You write it down. You count 1, 2, 3, 4th person goes by. You ask the 5th, oh, excuse me, what's your favorite? Okay, so that would be a specific item interval, for example. Or a time interval would be, okay, every 2 minutes I'm going to ask the closest person. So you watch your clock. 2 minutes go by. Right when it hits 2 minutes, that closest person, you say, excuse me, what's your favorite sport? And then you start the clock again. You record that person. You guys get the idea. 2 minutes go by. Seconds. Oh, hey, excuse me. What? So it's a time interval. Okay. So that is what's called a systematic random sample. Those are both good. Here's what I want you to do, and this is for our lesson. This will help you. And these should be in your notes, right? Almost close to each other. Put a star in your little margin next to those two, because you're going to want to refer to your vocabulary during your lesson. That's pretty important. Put a star next to, you don't have to put it next to unbiased sample, because that's kind of the heading. These two are the two that we're going to use. Okay? Systematic random sample and simple random sample. Put a little star by there where you can identify them quickly and find them. Okay, so those are 2 types of good ways to sample. Now let me show you some bad ways, some things that you want to try to stay away from but are common. Okay, but before I do, let's just talk about a bias sample, everyone. All right, so they say a bias sample is a sample drawn in such a way that one or more parts of the population are favored over others. It's biased. That's what bias means. It's not accurate. You know, when we talked about it, I made a joke about it, like bias being a lying sample. So I'm giving you the correct information. Okay? So, for example, what if let's say you're a female, you're a girl in a 7th grade class, and of course a lot of your friends are girls, so all you do is you go and ask them, excuse me, what is your favorite, okay, and you're just asking girls, what is your favorite 7th grade sport? Okay, well, there's a problem with something like that, right? Think about it. Even though at Rayburn, I like to see it, and I have actually some of my students who play it, but what's a sport, for example, that girls are less likely to play? Football, right? I mean, that's an example, right? I mean, we still have girls on the team. That's awesome, but what that's going to do is again, that's going to skew, meaning it's going to alter for a bad way the results to your survey. That's not representative. You have to ask girls and boys, right? Because some sports are more gender-based. Okay, so that's an example just of an overall bias sample. Let's talk about 2 bad samples. Here we go. The first one is one of the more common. This is the convenient sample, everyone. Convenient sample. And while you're right there, put a star by this one. Okay, we have 4 examples that we're going to put stars by. This is the 3rd one here. 2 good and 2 bad. 2 unbiased and 2 biased. So here's what a convenient sample is. This is a sample which consists of members of a population that are easily accessed. So like I said, if you're a girl, you might be more comfortable asking your friends, who a lot of them are females, what's your favorite sport? Well, that is a convenient sample. Why? Because they're easily accessed. You're more comfortable with girls, but it's going to alter your results. It does. If this was a school of all girls, that was the population, right? Then it'd be probably fairly accurate, maybe. Well, I don't know about that if they're just all your friends, but because they all may share the same kind of sport. But still, it'd be a little more accurate, right? But this population has boys and girls. You can't just easily do that. Here's another example. What if we were to ask volleyball players when coaching? So let's say, let's say for some reason, my boss here at school, the learning director, tells me, hey, Mr. Wilkins, can you do me a favor and go and find out from your students what their favorite sport is? And so let's say I just get behind by teaching you guys, and I forget, and I go to the gym after school to coach my volleyball team, and I say, hey, guys, bring it in. I want to ask you something really quick. I forgot to do this in class and ask my students. I'm going to ask you, what's your favorite sport? Why? Because it's easily accessed. It's someone that's right there. I have access to my volleyball players. Now, think about it, because there could be convenience samples can alter your results in different ways. What is one way that this one might be altered? They're all going to say volleyball. I mean, first of all, it might be their favorite sport if they're playing the sport, right? Maybe if they play like 3 sports during the year, you know it's at least probably one. And it might be because we're having a successful season that is their favorite sport right then. So that alters it a little bit. Maybe some of my players are just, they don't want to upset me. So what do they might like football a little bit better, but they go, hey, coach, yeah, I love volleyball. Volleyball's my favorite, right? Because they don't want to upset me. You know, I'm their coach right then, so they might be scared to tell me the truth. And sometimes that alters things as well. Okay? So that's an example of a convenience sample and how it could alter your results. All right, and then the last type of biased sample, meaning a bad sample, is a voluntary response sample. Everyone?
Voluntary response sample.
All right, so the book says this is a sample which involves only those who want to participate in the sampling. It involves only those who want to participate in the sampling. Okay? So for example, I want to find out this survey, and I ask all the 7th grade students after school. I post some posters around, let's say it was 2 months ago, and I post a bunch of posters around the campus. It says, hey, report to 115 if you'd like to share which is your favorite sport as a 7th grader. Okay? So there's a lot of different ways this could be altered, but it could be altered. Let's see if anyone catches a hold of this one and gets an idea. What if it was 2 months ago and I'm asking students to show up after school to answer this, what could be wrong with my results? It's a certain sports season, right? So the last season, volleyball, baseball, softball, what else was going on? Tennis, it was boys golf, right? Track. Guess what? Those sports, if they are chosen as the student's favorite sport, okay, what's wrong with that? They're playing the sport right then after school. They're not going to show up to answer those sports. So guess what? Those sports results are going to be way down below. It's going to give me inaccurate information. Okay? Because of something like that. Here's another problem with voluntary response. How many of you guys have ever shopped on Amazon? Amazon.right? Okay? Now, this may or may not be true, okay? Meaning that it depends on the person, okay? But for the most part, think of it this way. When you go and buy something from Amazon, you know how you have the reviews on that? You should be looking at the reviews to see if it's a good product or not a lot of times. But here's the problem. When you look at the reviews, you have to be careful because sometimes, and this is just me personally, but this could happen with others, the time that I want to go give a review more than any other time is when I have strong feelings about that product one way or another. Meaning the product is horrible, it came half broken, or it came and it just doesn't work the way the description is, right? And sometimes you can return it, but some people don't bother returning it, and they're just unhappy. So what do? They go online, and they're so upset that they give it a bad review. On the other hand, people that it is the best item they ever bought, right? they're going to go give it like 5 stars. They'll go online and boom, they give it 5 stars. This is the best thing ever. But what about the people that are just content with it? I mean, it's good stuff. They're happy. Maybe they're busy people. They're probably not going to go and give feedback, okay, or at least more rarely. So that's an example of a voluntary response. Okay, a voluntary response sample is that it's only the people that are volunteering, because that's what those are. Okay. Anyway, so really quickly, if you haven't done it already, in your notes, you should have a star by simple random sample and systematic random sample, because those are both an example of unbiased sampling. And then under the bias sample, you should have a star by convenience sample and voluntary response sample. Those are the 4 types that are going to help us on our homework and that you're going to want to refer to. So don't put your vocab away. Keep it out during the lesson, okay, because you'll want to look back on those. Okay, I did promise you guys if you were on task during vocab, I'd give you a nice little 30-second break to get a breather, and then we'll do some problems together. Okay, 30 seconds, go. Okay, so here we go. We're going to do some examples together. So what I'd like you to do is go ahead and get your worksheet. That is the 10-2 worksheet up at the top. And make sure, let's go ahead and start on the skills practice side. Okay, by the way, use this time really quickly. Put your name, date, period up at the top. Okay, here we go. So what you're going to see on most of these, some of them will be a little different, but on most of them there's a little story. And the story, and it's a little story, right? Each problem's a little story, and it's talking about some kind of sampling, trying to get results. And we want to know, of course, is it biased or unbiased? What type of bias or unbiased is it, right? Is it valid, meaning is it a true result? Is it going to be a good result? Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Let's go ahead on this side. Let's start with problem number 2. Okay, so let's go ahead. I'm going to just read the directions. It says, determine whether each conclusion is valid, and then it says, justify your answer. Okay, so here's what you'll need to do. All right, so here we go. Number 2, let's read the story here. It says, students who wish to represent the school at a school board meeting are asked to stop by the office after lunch. After lunch, 5 students wish to represent the school. All right, so we want to know, of course, okay, is this a valid, meaning a good, a true way of doing this? And then we have to back it up by justifying it, all right, with what we talked about in vocabulary. So here's what we're going to do, okay? Step 1, and I'll write it above here. Go and write these little notes down for this. Step 1 is we need to look here, and let's go ahead and match the story with a type of biased or unbiased sampling from our vocab. Okay, so here's what I'm talking about. If I'm reading this, I go back to my vocabulary and compare it to one of these 4. See which one that story, which one of these vocab words fit that story the best, right? So simple random, like it's just chosen at random, all right? Picking out of a hat, for example. Is it picked every specific time or item interval? Like, it's after, remember I said like pick every fifth student coming in from, the parking lot at the start of school? Is it convenient sampling, meaning that it's a sample, population easily accessed, right? And like me asking my players. Or voluntary, it's just asking them to come on in and vote if you like, okay? If I take a look, which one does it seem like? Voluntary, right? So here's what you're going to do. Before I write anything, step 2 is the voluntary. Is it a biased or an unbiased sample? It's biased, right? It's bad. It's going to give us bad results. Okay? So here's what we're going to do. We know that it's an example of voluntary response. That's a biased sampling. So step 3 is we're going to answer this first, determine whether each conclusion is valid. All right? So because it is biased, valid means true. Okay? Because it is biased, we're going to put the conclusion would be invalid, right? In the prefix in, meaning not. So invalid. And then it says justify your answer. So here's what you're going to do. We're going to just write a sentence describing what we just found in our vocab. So it's invalid. We would say it is biased. Oops. It is biased because it is a voluntary response sample. And that's all you're going to need to do on these. Okay? So you guys probably see what I talked about with you earlier, how there's some thinking, there's some reading, you have to match them. It's a lot of thought process. Okay, it's still math, but there's no calculations involved. This is just kind of vocabulary based. You're matching it with your vocab words and writing a sentence. So you're going to state whether or not it's valid or invalid. State it's one of those because it's either biased or unbiased, and then state which part is it or which exactly type of sample it is from our vocab. Okay? But I would definitely go with these steps first. That will help you get to the writing. Okay? Now I'm going to have you guys try one of these. Any questions? Okay, here's the one I want you guys to try. The one right above it. Number 1. The one right above it. All right? Go. All right, how many of you still need more time on that one? Okay, give you about 30 more seconds, then I'm going to have you guys share. Okay. All right. So even if you're not done with the writing part, you should have a good idea which one it is. So at the very least, share that. If you have your writing done, of course, share your writing. But if not, then talk about what you have with your partner. Okay, 30 seconds. Go. Okay, so I had students yesterday. I had a great question asked, and then I'm listening to some conversations in here, and I see that I probably should just tell you about my conversation with my students yesterday, and that is there's some confusion on vocab. And I'm not talking about our vocabulary in like our vocab words. I'm talking about, well, a little bit about our vocab words, but how it relates to the directions. Okay, so here's what you might want to write down, okay? And this will help your vocabulary as a human being a little more too. You have valid and you have invalid. Now valid, like I wrote up here for you guys, means like it's true. It's correct, it's true, valid, okay? Obviously the prefix in means what? Not. Then you have the word biased. What did I say? I gave a funny word to describe bias, even though it's not an exact synonym. But what was that word?
Lie.
It's a lie. So you have biased and you have unbiased, which means, what does un mean? Not a lie. So don't get confused here. If biased is a lie and valid is true, what does biased go with? Invalid. So some of us start looking at prefixes and match up the prefixes, but that don't match up the prefixes. They actually are opposite because the base word has opposite meaning. So valid is unbiased. Okay? And don't, of course, in this whole thing, don't forget that both simple, random, and a systematic random sample are both unbiased, and convenience and voluntary are both biased. Okay, so make sure you understand how that matches up. Okay, before I go over number one, any questions about that? That's because I've seen a lot of people be confused about that. So, okay, here we go. So number one, let's go ahead and close read this, even though you guys have already read it. Let's read it one more time. To evaluate the defect rate of its chips, an integrated circuit manufacturer tests every 100th chip off the
Production
line. Out of 10 chips tested, 1 chip is found to be defective. The manufacturer that 30 chips out of 3,000 will be defective. Okay? So, I just noticed something on this. Out of every 10 chips tested, 1 chip is found to be defective. Right? So what is that as a fraction? 1/10. The manufacturer concludes that 3 chips out of 3,000 will be defective. 1 times 3 is 3. Is 10 times 3 3,000? No, right? So their conclusion is incorrect. I'll be honest with you. I just noticed that, but it's because I've never cared about the conclusion, even though that the guy did his math wrong. Here's what I care about. I care about the process of finding the conclusion or finding the results. Okay, that's what we're mainly dealing with here, just like I dealt with on number 2. Okay, so you're going to see a bunch of these. Now, if the conclusion is wrong or true, it doesn't matter. Okay, but here's what I care about. let's take a look here at what they're doing. Okay, he messed up on the math. All right, that's not a problem with the sampling. That's a problem with the guy. They need to put him back in Math 7, I guess. All right, so here's what I'm looking at. Match the story with vocab. So if I take a look at this. They're pulling every 100th chip off the production line. Well, every 100th chip sounds a lot like right here. Remember where we were asking every 5th person coming in from the parking lot? This is an item interval, not a time interval. It's not based on time. It's based off of every item, right? Off of, in this case, every 100th chip. So because of that, that is a systematic random sample, meaning it's unbiased. So if it's unbiased, I'm looking up here. Unbiased means it's valid. So I'm going to go ahead and write the conclusion would be valid. It is unbiased because it is we called it a systematic random sample. Okay, guys, questions on that? Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you guys, since we just went over 2, I'd like to do another one, but there's not much difference. Go ahead and flip the paper over. I'm going to give you guys another one to do. I was going to do another one with you, but I just did 2. So let's, I'm going to give you guys another one to try. On the homework practice side, make sure you're on the right side. I want you to try out problem number 1. Try problem number 1. One more. Okay, go. All right, anyone need more time? Okay, give you about 30 more seconds and then I'll have you guys share on that one. Okay, kind of like the last time, even if you're not done with the writing, hopefully you at least know if it's valid or invalid and why or why not. So go ahead, turn to your neighbor and share your results. Go. All right, let's go ahead and read this story. It says, to determine the most
common
injury cared for in an emergency room, a reporter goes to the same
hospital
every afternoon for 1 month during the
summer
and observes people entering the emergency room. She concludes that the second-degree sunburn is the most common injury. All right? So, if I'm looking here, you have to do a little extra thinking, but if I'm looking at which one it matches, I mean, I'm kind of thinking, what can I get rid of? Well, first of all, it's not necessarily voluntary, because it doesn't tell us that she's asking people, right? And it's not like people are just coming up to her and volunteering their information. I don't think it's random. It's definitely not a systematic random sample. She's not asking every fifth person going in the emergency room, right? I mean, maybe she's observed, but it sounds like she's observing most people. Okay? Here's what I'm thinking, though. Okay? It's kind of between these two, but I'm thinking she goes to a nearby hospital and is looking. Whenever she wants to write the report, she's looking at people that are easily accessed, just at a nearby hospital. During the time of the year, she wants to write the report. Okay? I'm leaning towards convenient sample. Now, if you're thinking about it, right? Second-degree sunburns. People getting that in the wintertime when it's raining?
no.
No. Right? Maybe if she would have found out what all of them were throughout the whole entire year, but considering that the results are affected by the sun, which is summertime, you're looking at it not being valid. So it'd definitely be a convenience sample. So if I write this, I would put the conclusion is invalid. All right. And I put it is biased because it is a voluntary, convenience sample. All right, questions on that one? Okay, now we have one more type of problem that's going to pop. It won't pop up very much in this homework, but I want to make sure I go over one of these with you. Staying on the same side, let's look down at problem number 5. Okay, now problem number 5 has a scenario we're going to read up top, and then it has 3 different questions coming off the scenario. So let's read the little story first. Okay, under dentistry. Here we go. A survey is to determine the reasons dental patients are to go to the dentist. Describe the sample and explain why each sampling method might not be valid. Okay, so here's the difference between this kind of problem and the others. They're pretty much saying, it says describe the sample, okay, and explain why each sampling might not be valid. They're not saying is it valid or not, they're pretty much implying it's not valid. But why is it not valid? And they want you to then take it and be more specific. Kind of like how I talked about why it's a convenient sample. She's going in the middle of summer. Okay? That's kind of what they're looking for down here. You're going to extend it just a little bit more. So it's going to make you think a little bit more and give you better reason. All right? So it says, we're going to just focus on C. It says, randomly selected dental patients who are having a routine checkup and are asked to write down their feelings. Okay? So, first of all, I wanted to point this out. You see that right there? Don't let that sucker you in, because yes, they are randomly selected. Maybe the morning they got up, the dentist asked the secretary or the dental assistant saying, hey, the people that are coming in today, can you please pick their name out of a hat and see who we're going to ask? Okay, that is random, but here's the issue. The bottom line is they're still asking people that are coming into the dentist's office that day. That is a convenient sample. It's convenient. Okay? So, and think about this, right? Isn't this a lot like me asking my volleyball players a question like, what's your favorite sport? He's asking his dental patients about their feelings on why some people might be hesitant to go to the dentist. There's two problems wrong with that, right? There's two things. First of all, those people might not be too hesitant because they are coming in to see him, right? And even if they were hesitant, I mean, half the people that are hesitant probably stayed home, okay? And the other thing is that they're, again, his patients. They don't want to hurt his feelings, so they're probably going to try to be nice, possibly. All right? So, here's what you can write on this. Okay, it says, why are they not valid? And I would say, it is not valid, or you could say invalid, because it is a convenient sample. So step 1 is very close to all of the steps that we just did. And then you need to, though, expand on it on these, and this would be step 2. Okay, and that is, he is asking his own patients who may try to be polite. And that last part, there could be more than one. I think I just gave you a couple on this particular one. There could be more than one explanation, but that's one of them. So I'm telling what's wrong with it. I mean, yes, it's a convenient sample, but what is that causing it to do? What's going wrong? That's what step 2 is. Okay? Questions on that one? Okay, guys, unbiased and biased samples.